So this is how you make general cards for Warhawk, or if you want to do it for your own channel. So I started going down the route similar to, you could say, Epic History or History March. I used to make my own where I had like an overhead flag with the name and like the command that this person was leading. The name and the portrait or the flag are two separate layers that I add on to the general card, and then I'll render it all together at once. So officially, or starting off, I have this template here that I use for all my cards to make sure they're the same size, the same text, same everything. So I have to keep recreating every time. So let's say, for example, I want to make this for General Meade. I usually just put their last name because sometimes some people have very long names and it's easier just to recognize them by their last name. Like you're going to recognize Lee, Grant, Meade, Johnston, Bragg, the major commanders of the Civil War. And I usually put the command that they're in charge of. So for example, Meade is in command of the Pennsylvania Reserves at Antietam. So type that out, all caps so people can see it. Reserves, and it should fit. Make sure we get it correct there. And then I usually get their photograph if you have photographs of whoever you want to show, or if you just want to show a flag. It's however you want to do it. So I render this out, save it, then I render the other one out, save it, and then I go to After Effects. This is where you actually make the card itself. So this is Meade in the context of him being the Corps commander of First Corps. I have the layer with the name. I have his portrait here. And actually, this frame I made for the general card is just separate layers to give the effect that this is actually over these layers. So if I hide these, for example, all I can see is the frame. It's actually, I think, in 2 or 3 parts. All the layer is just this middle pole right here not shown. So I just put that above those 2 images I just hid to give it an idea that it's underneath, it's attached to it. It's all about layering with animation. So in this instant, the layer for the stand will be above both the Meade name card and his portrait. Mr. Meade, here you go. And then this is custom made. I commissioned that using somebody from Fiverr. I wanted to give a little icon for the Union that people can recognize, and the eagle with the shield and arrows. It's a real good example of the Union in the Civil War. So I decided to have that made, and I wanted to attach it at the top because if I didn't have that, it would just be the top of the stand. And most, at least here in America, if you see a flagpole, you might see an eagle at the top. So it's kind of a callback to that or the time of the Civil War. So I got the eagle at the top, the name card, the portrait, and the stand. The last thing that I add to this is the actual shadow effect, which is basically taking this stand, have that rendered out, and giving it a shadow blur effect. So let's find it here. So if I turn off the effects, it'll just be another card. But since I added effects such as drop shadow and Gaussian blur, it creates this shadow effect for this other general card. So I have it attached here. And all I have to do after this is pre-render it. The reason why I pre-render it is that both the name card and the portrait are playing a wave effect that you can get in After Effects. And I have it where it ends about 10 seconds. So at this point, it'll play again the animation if I just continue it out. So for the 10 seconds, it'll wave, wave, wave. And then when it reaches 10 seconds, it'll just loop around and replay the animation. As you can see here, nothing goes past 10 seconds, stuff starts disappearing. But I pre-render it and then I bring it into, let's say, the battle, and I set so say, for example, I go to time, I click on Enable Time Remapping, which allows me to change the properties of this. Enable Time Remapping, hold left control, hit the stopwatch, go to the arrow, go to property, and then hit loop out, which basically means that the animation of both the general portrait and the general name will continuously play however long the layer is shown. So when you actually put this into the official video that you're making and you do all those steps, it will continuously play throughout the entire video. Let's say, for example, you don't set the time remapping and the loop after. So after the first 10 seconds, it will just stop. It'll just stay there. It's not playing anymore. It'll just be a regular picture, which basically tells you did not set it. But basically, that's it. And then when you have it on your official video, give it a 3D look and then actually turn the rotation up a bit so where it's kind of standing up in a way. So it shows both the shadow, which you can see here, or standing up. It's not just 2D, like brigade cards, regiment cards, the blocks, whatever you want to call them. Like all this stuff can be easily made in After Effects. And of course, there's multiple steps you have to go through, from first creating what you want to use, then put it into like an After Effects file like this. And like I said, again, this is a template. Pretty simple, pretty easy to make, just knowing the steps. And of course, making sure that stays consistent with whatever you're making. Like all I have to do is, okay, I got Lee here. Let me change it to Lee and put Lee's name up, and then put the little star I have for the Confederates. And then boom, I have the Confederate one once I turn that off. So all I have to really do is just make the name card, the portraits, and then switch out the icon, whether it's Union or Confederates, and then I could just pre-render it from there and then just put it into my official video file. So let's say, for example, this box right here, that's AP Hill. That's one of those layers I made. Of course, he's moving along with the brigades as they march onto the field. And of course, shows him appearing. Let's go to his layer. So of course, you have the initial timestamp of where he starts. He's moving along, going to that next time frame timestamp. So he appears here. It's the same thing as the brigades. It's just instead of him moving along a 2D route, he's moving along a 3D route. Of course, like I said, I give a little X rotation. Appear that it's like standing up. That's not just 2D. If you're going to set it as 3D, might as well show it as 3D, right? So let's go through that, setting up to be a continuous loop with animations. So if I want to show it as like a continuous loop, all I need to do is first off is hit enable time remapping. Then when that appears, hold left control, click on that. There you go. Hit the arrow, go to property, and then hit loop out. These two dots, these two timestamps, that shows you how long the animation is going to play before it loops. So it's going to be set for the 10 seconds that it was rendered as. So it's seamless as it loops each animation. Since I have that set up now, that it just will play continuously as long as I have the layer set. So for example, AP Hill's layer is going to go all the way. As long as this screen is showing him, you will continuously see the animation loop. My recommendation is color coding. Since there's 700 layers on this, I make sure that almost all my layers, at least the important ones, are color coded. As you can see, a lot of blues, greens, reds, orange, pink, and like just based on the color code, I can tell what that layer is. Like these orange layers are different brigades. And of course, I can see it up here, like especially when you get into like these large scale battles. Like I would sometimes zoom out on those old regiment videos I made, and you would just see hundreds, like maybe almost 1,000 layers of just regiments. Something like this, but like maybe 5 or 10 times this amount.